Hi and welcome to the Rec Cinema, right here in the middle of Wilmslow in Cheshire East, where we're meeting in person today. And welcome to Life Church Wilmslow. We're a group of friends from across Cheshire East who are on a journey of faith and friendship. And together we're learning to love God, to love people and love life to the full. The way we live that out is through 3 channels. Live streams like this, where we join online with people from all over the world. Then there's Life Locals, when we join with friends in a kind of in-person watch party and we enjoy live stream together in a home. Check out our website for more details of a Life Local near you. And thirdly, there's our gatherings at the Rec Cinema in Wilmslow, when we all come together in one place. In addition, we get together regularly on Sundays in a local park or coffee bar to catch up as well. Throughout the month, we do life together in life groups in people's homes. There's 3 to choose from right now. Each one has its own flavour and each group is welcoming, friendly and open for you to be yourself and really connect with friends on a deeper level. Our live streams go live every Sunday. We meet together online at 10:15 for just 30 minutes on Facebook Live, on YouTube and on our website at lifechurchwilmslow.org. All the information and email addresses to get in touch are on our website. But hey, right now, get ready to connect, be blessed and enjoy life with us.
The Lord bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you bless you and keep you, make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn His face toward you and give you peace. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May His favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. His presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you. He is with you in the morning, in the evening, and you're coming, and you're going, and you're weeping and rejoicing. He is for you. 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 He is for you.
Hey, good morning. Hello. I want to start by saying hi to Paul and Krista and all our friends at Life Church Wilmslow and everybody watching wherever you're joining today. I've enjoyed the connection that Ivy's had with you for many years now, and it's fantastic to see a church there that's adapting, changing, always aiming to reach out beyond itself in new and imaginative ways. Nothing can stop you because the Lord is right there with you in that. And your latest moves have inspired me, to be honest, even made me a bit jealous, if I can have a quick confession time, about the new facility that you're now going to be based out of when you meet physically. Though I know you know as well as we do that church is never about the buildings people go to, but what God is building in people. It's not about how many people go to your church, but how many today will go from your church to make disciples who make disciples for Jesus. Now, everything's changing. I don't know all the details of the changes that you've faced as we've all had to go through the pandemic, but I dare say many of you will feel frazzled, at least even maybe traumatized by all the fear, the uncertainty and the grief all around us. And unfortunately, we have to stay real, get real and say it's not done yet. Here at Ivy, we were already making big changes as we went from mainly meeting in one big place a few years ago to meeting in more and more smaller places or sites. But we also prayed, Lord, do what you have to do so that we're never just containing or holding on to what we have, but we can take hold of all that you've got for us. And we spilled out of the cinema that we were in. And the picture I used then was like this great big bath spilling over into various buckets that met in different places. But when the pandemic hit and the government said we had to lock down, I told everybody watching online, now we are equipping you more than ever for the church that meets in your house. And we shifted to that. Everybody's ministry, paid or unpaid, had to change. And the places we met into, well, some we just couldn't meet in. And as things began to be promised to open up and we looked to the future, that led to sincere, great questions from committed Ivy members about how and where and when we will meet in the future. And though yesterday we met here at our new campus in Cheadle-Hulme for 2 services and for 2 more in Didsbury, as well as continuing online, I've had to keep saying that the only real certainty I have about tomorrow or next month and the rest of the year is that God will still be on the throne of the universe. The government don't know. The scientists are not sage enough. But our God has all the wisdom that we need, and he's promised if we lack it, we can ask him and he'll make it available to us. But at the same time, the questions continue, and any leader in any sector right now will know the tension, headache, the tightening shoulders and neck that come along with uncertainty that continues. And as a church, it's compounded when, because we really love people, we would love to be able to give them all the assurances, everything that we crave ourselves and say it's going to be okay. But if you remember a while ago, the government promised us a roadmap. We were told it was irreversible. But then we're told, but this will have to stay and that will have to remain. And in the same way as a church, we had people saying, hey, where's our roadmap? Many of them really admitted they kind of wanted a map back to how it used to be somehow before this all happened. That was the yearning, that map that would take us back. They said, where's the roadmap? But it feels actually the best I can usually give is some limited direction to kind of go to the end of the street and turn left with a warning that there are potholes and flash floods and dogs running loose and unexpected roadworks. Here in the northwest, we've endured more and longer than most. Pretty dark times with the promised lights at the end of the tunnel usually being extinguished, dimmed or postponed. I'd only slightly dared hope, if I'm honest, that summer really might mean for a while we can get together and, group hug in church. But it seems to me that we're still on a pathway towards inevitable future controls that we're told are for our own good. So while we have always committed to do everything that we can to find ways to connect and encourage one another, to spur one another on to love and good deeds, as the Bible says, how do we move forward with such uncertainty when what happens just seems to be out of our hands all the time? I remember years ago hearing Erwin McManus, a preacher, say that people will make a liar out of a leader if you cave into that pressure to say something that they want to hear, even though God's not told you anything about it. John chapter 9, I was just reading, says that as Jesus was walking along, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" We can waste a lot of time debating and discussing what's going wrong or why that bad thing happened and so on. That's what they're doing here, getting all philosophical about the problem. But then Jesus is like, you know what? Let's get on with doing something about it. This guy needs help, not a theological discussion. Verse 3 says, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." God's at work. "As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I'm in the world, I'm the light of the world." You want to know the way? You don't know where to go? You're in the dark? Jesus is the light. Jesus is the light of the world, and the darkness will never overcome his light. And we follow him. We follow the light. Verse 6, after saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva and put it on the man's hands. I'd never do that. I don't know about you. I don't know why he did that. Jesus didn't have to do the spitty, muddy pie thing to heal him. He didn't have any formula, but he didn't do this with anybody else either. Now, my wife's a nurse in ophthalmology, and she had no idea about this either. But it would seem to me the last thing that you want to do with a blind person is put something on their eyes that would even make somebody who could see unable to. Maybe Jesus really wants to show him what it is to walk by faith and not by sight. Because then in verse 7, he says, go. He says, go he told him, wash in the pool of Siloam. This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. We've all had to kind of feel our way forward in the darkness for the last little while, haven't we? Remember Erwin McManus said, though, that for leaders, he said, leaders are often like that blind man, leaving the pool where he was sitting in the dark, but now moving forward with like these mud cakes still smearing his face as he stumbles on in the direction that he knows Jesus sent him. And he said the people can, as I say, make a liar out of the leader in those times because they want to follow you, but they want to know that you know where you're going. So, I can kind of hope that I fake it till I make it, or I can just admit I'm headed in this direction, going one step at a time, because I think that's what I heard Jesus say when he sent us. 13 years ago when I came to lead Ivy, I said I feel the way that God tends to guide us is not actually by rolling out the whole map of what he wants and has for us. It's so big and so great. I'd probably freak out and run a mile if he did that. But instead, he just gives us a scroll, an unrolling scroll with just a few lines visible. And as we focus on obedience to do that, just a few lines, next time we look, he unrolled it another line or two. Does that make sense? I've seen that more and more as the years go by. That's been our story so far. Not about you, but that's how it's been for us here at Ivy. Since the pandemic, our church was forced to go from meeting in multiple sites to one geographic location being available. And we could sit and wait to go back to how it was one day. Like that guy who was given one talent, that's all he had, and what did he do? He buried it in the ground. Or we could use what we had, and we ended up pushing out massively online, from which we've reached thousands of new people by taking our services online. I checked, there's about 2,000 interactions a day, even now, on Facebook alone, with even more reach on Sundays all over the world. We've done these things called Faith Lift every day. We've put out other messages, worship and events online, as well as not letting anything stop us continuing to grow and meet as we could in home groups and back-to-back alpha courses. And the discipleship pathway course that we wrote has had over 100 people learn and practice sharing their faith like never before. Right now, because we all long to see one another face-to-face like we used to, we've opened up to meet in 3D for those happy to, and we've kept reaching out and discipling online. The youth work has flourished more than ever before. We've made some staff changes too. We've got questions about all the ways that we're going to meet and the places that we move in and as we go forward. There's still changes here to stay. And I know this is not just an Ivy problem. I know some churches have still only met online since March 2020. Some of them, they're just desperate for face-to-face meetings, but they have problems that stop them from being able to do it. And what will we do if we're told you have to be double vaccinated to worship Jesus with others, or if they call another lockdown for some other reason? What if? Other churches have different problems and questions, but none of us have all the answers. Places and people are all different. Some are comfortable, some are uncomfortable with different scenarios. There's no right or wrong. There's no one size to fit all. But maybe that's because we're not meant to just fit in. We're always meant to expand, to grow, to multiply. Now, when God wants to speak to me, he usually guides me just through regular studies of his word. I've read my Bible. I just do that like I've done every day for over 25 years. I've always done some version of Bible in a year. And often as I'm reading, God will highlight something inside me and say, this is for you. This is for now. And recently, as our church was praying and getting ready to try and look at how we'll be Ivy, in the near future, just the next few months, I suppose, it happened again. Out of the blue, as I was following my Bible reading plan, I began to wonder, as I read this particular verse, this passage in a chapter, that maybe give me a glimpse of his 3-year plan. You can check it out too and see if it fits where you are. Perhaps only time will tell. But when I first read it, I got so excited I highlighted it like I do, because I like a paper Bible. But it's good to get confirmation. And I say plan, but I felt like this is less to give us the detail of everything that we need to do, more about the direction that he's taking us, amid the changes we'll keep on making and adjusting to as we tack our way forward with him. It was something to give faith, as I wrote it in my journal, that 3 years from now, maybe I could look back at as I've done before in my journal, look back and go, wow, look at that. God did that. God was in control. God knew what was happening when I didn't. God knew what was happening all along. So that's what the Lord did. And the first reading for that morning was from 2 Kings chapter 19. I haven't got time to read it all now, but good King Hezekiah here is in Jerusalem, surrounded by enemies, in lockdown, fears all around, the enemy at the gates, keeping the people in constant suspense and worry. And a message comes from the potential invaders. Sennacherib, king of Assyria, basically says, your God can't deliver you any more than any of the other nations that I've conquered. So what do you do with that? Well, it says here, Hezekiah took the letter into the temple. He spread it out before the Lord. What a great picture of prayer. That's a great thing to do with our worries, isn't it? Name them, write them down where we can see them, and then show them to God, present them to him. So he prays to Yahweh, and he says in effect, you know, you're not a little g God like all those other ones that this guy's defeated. Please, sovereign Lord, deliver us. It's a brilliant prayer that he prays. And then Isaiah arrives, first with a prophecy for Assyria's king, where he says, because of your insolence, I'm going to put a hook in your nose, pull you right back to where you came from, and that happened. But then he turns to Hezekiah, and he says to him, this will be a sign for you. He says, this year you will eat what grows by itself. It's like, notice what's growing right now. And the second year, what springs from that, something else is coming behind it. But in the third year, sow and reap, plant vineyards and eat their fruit. Once more, a remnant of the kingdom of Judah will take root below and bear fruit above. You don't get the fruit unless you put the roots down. For out of Jerusalem will come a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a band of survivors. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. This is what God's going to do. Now, as I read that, 2 Kings 19, 29 to 31, I'm highlighting this, and I'm kind of holding my breath. I'm talking to the Lord, saying, could this be, Lord, what the next 3 years are going to look like? Right now, when lockdown has decimated so much ministry, but new things have been springing up in the dry ground. Here at Ivy, so many exciting things, including new staff members coming on and staff members' responsibilities changing and new opportunities here at Cheadle Human. And as we work along the message community grocery and through our work with CAP and our discipleship pathway course and new children's things that we're planning and doing. So many people who used to come to church are now being church more than ever before in the places where they live and move and have their being, and seeing that God's right there with them. Is this the year to just notice and closely examine and encourage what's springing up right now? Is that year one? If so, more than anything, that requires this Christian virtue, the spiritual fruit of patience. But I'm like many of you, I want the 3-year fruit now. I don't want to wait 3 years. See, before COVID, we were in like 3-year land. We were in planting and sprouting and fruiting and shooting all over the place. But then everything that had grown, I realized, didn't just start big and come out of nowhere. I remember that it all always started small somewhere. And the Bible says, despise not the day of small beginnings. And Ivy Academy didn't start by hiring Manchester Academy. It started in Starbucks in Fallowfield. And the few started with just a few people, a few families. Ivy Sharston started with a handful of people on Sunday afternoon helping to disciple people coming through the Message Enterprise Centre. Even Ivy Didsbury started as a house group in 1893. Something small sprang up and then it grew and it multiplied and it bore through. It takes time to restart again. Each one of these things was a kind of microchurch. And could it be that we won't even start to see the multiplied fruit of what God is doing now until the second year, until 2022, as roots are formed below through prayer and hard work and perseverance and pushing on. And suddenly I got excited about the remnant, the survivors who patiently stick through the pain and the adventure to be part of this next few years. Because next year, 2022, they're going to see even more miraculously springing up from what God has already done here in hard times, in unexpected ways, in places and people, including the plans for us to be part of Festival Manchester. And if that's just the beginning, what new wine's going to be poured out? What a great harvest is going to come? How many vineyards are going to be planted as we sow and reap in 2023 and beyond? Now, I didn't want to get too excited, that would never do, so I just said, wow, but then I carried on and I turned over to my next scheduled reading in the daily reading plan. And out of all the 1,180 chapters in the Bible, it just happened that day to be Isaiah 36. You may not know the passage, but it says, Jerusalem's in lockdown, Assyria's army threatening and blustering outside, and my next reading is Isaiah 37, which it turns out, amazingly to me, is a carbon copy, word for word, of what I've just read, 2 Kings 19. Of course, I've read them before, but never on the same day. I'm reading about this leader, Hezekiah, needing wisdom, comfort for the people. He tears his clothes, he takes the letter, spreads it out in prayer. Then God speaks and says, because you've prayed to me, I've put a hook in your enemy's nose. He's done with. He's out of here. Meantime, this will be the sign for you, Hezekiah. This year, you will eat what grows by itself. So notice, if you like, what's happened. What's sprouted up through the last year. What's God been doing in the tough, dry times. What do you do now that you didn't do before? What's working? That's year one. And the second year, what springs from that? In other words, work with what is working. Not just what used to work. Don't look back. You can't go back. But in the third year, sow and reap. Multiplication's happening here. Plant vineyards and eat their fruit. There are greater times ahead for the church. God is doing a new thing, and he wants us to perceive it. And he says, once more, a remnant of the kingdom of Judah will take root below and bear fruit above. We're taking root right now, but fruit's coming. For out of Jerusalem will come a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a band of survivors. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. That's Isaiah 37. And I'm saying yes to that by faith. I'm saying I want to be part of that fruit-bearing remnant. Right now the roots have to go deeper. And even when I don't know what the Lord is doing, I know that he does. And so I said, I encourage you to pray it with me. I said, yes, Lord, unless you return before or take me to be with you where it's better by far, may I see this harvest. And I want to live to serve you, wholeheartedly believing that those who sow in tears will reap in joy. Amen.